In this video, we discuss distinguishing between a parameter and a statistic. So here are some definitions. A parameter is a numerical measurement describing some characteristic of the population. And a statistic is a numerical measurement describing some characteristic of a sample. So we've seen this graphic before. We saw this in the last PowerPoint. The population is everyone, and the sample is some subset of that population. Now, if I were to take, let's say, test scores, maybe this population is the whole class of statistics students. If I were to take a sample of those students, instead of the 30 students in class, maybe take 10 students in class, and then average all of their test scores by adding them together and then dividing by 10. What I would have is an average test score that represented those 10 students. That average test score we would call the sample mean. It would be denoted by this symbol, X bar, and that would be a statistic because it's a characteristic of the sample. Now, if I were to do the same thing with all of your test scores, if I wanted to know what the average or the mean was, the mean test score after your first exam, I might take everyone's test scores, add them together, and divide by the total number of students in the class. That would give me a population mean. Since the whole population is the entire statistics class, when I calculate that, I'm calculating a parameter. Notice the alliteration. Statistics are characteristics of samples, and parameters are measurements that are characteristic of populations. Parameter goes with population, statistic goes with sample. Now here's an exercise from our book, just to see if we understand the difference between statistics and parameters and populations and samples. So this is, I'll just read it to you. It says, in a Harris Interactive survey of 2,276 adults in the United States, it was found that 33% of those surveyed never travel using commercial airlines. First, we're asked to identify the population and the sample. So let's read this again, but read it more slowly. It says, in an interactive survey, a Harris Interactive survey of 2,276 adults in the US, it was found that 33% of those surveyed never travel using commercial airlines. So I would think, since they mentioned that we're looking at a group of adults in the US, I would think that based on context, the population must be the number of adults in the US. And then the sample, well, there are much more than 2,276 adults in the US. The sample are those 2,276 surveyed adults. Here's another question, same problem statement. Question is 33% a parameter or a statistic? Well, to figure that out, we have to think about whether or not that 33% is related to the sample or it's related to the entire population. Is that 33% of all adults in the US, or is that 33% of those surveyed? Well, it says right here it's 33% of those surveyed. Since those surveyed is our sample, that means that that 33% is a characteristic of the sample, and therefore it is a statistic. And I'll see you in the next video to study or to learn about learning outcome number 2.